All right, welcome back to this week's episode of the Healthy Celiac Podcast. I have a wonderful guest from Canada today on the show, and it's Martin Pytela, who is a proven functional medicine expert and metabolic typing coach. His mission is restoring vitality to you and the planet, which speaks to my heart. And Martin uses his vast knowledge and experience to help thousands around the world discover how they can improve their health. Martin also has a family member with celiac disease, so he's well versed in what celiac disease is, and he's here to talk to us today all about metabolic health and how our diet can play a huge part in our overall health. So welcome to the show, Martin. It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you and your audience.
Thank you. So first of all, maybe tell us a little bit about your experience with celiac disease with your family.
I got into this quite innocently. I grew up in a family. My father was a veterinarian. I believed in science. I believed in the goodness of professionals. I thought that people with a white coat on and a diploma on the wall will always do the right thing. So I walked into a dentist's office as a 24-year-old. I ended up with 12 mercury amalgam fillings.
Ooh.
And that triggered a pretty serious dive into really bad health problems. That's when I found out that I was MTHFR. I found out that my Ashkenazi 50% genetics were really heavily contributing. My mother, survivor of the concentration camp experience, survived it because of her hypothyroidism.
Wow.
So then I'm learning, it's the famine that sorts people out, and the survivors end up with hypothyroid because they can go for 500 calories a day for weeks, if not months, right?
Yeah.
And so then I'm having these conversations with my mom, and she says, I don't understand, these people eat these servings this big. I do half a bun and 2 tomatoes and I'm done. But all of her life that I knew her, she would wake up in the morning and she would snort and snort and snort for half an hour, hacking out phlegm. And some years later, we said to her, this could be gluten stuff. And she said, no, that's okay. I'm not changing. But I bet you it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, later I found out, of course, that I lost my wheat tolerance by about age 55. For a while I thought it was okay. Then I started having some problems, and then I definitely lost the tolerance. I can't do the wheat anymore. I'm completely gluten-free. When the visitors come in, we tell them, you're safe here. There's no gluten in my house.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyway. Okay, so I had the experience of a total health breakdown. I used to be a management consulting expert, analyst.
Right.
I worked in the information technology. But eventually I had to analyze myself, the health problem. And that's how I figured out, oh my gosh, this is the problem. The problem is the inputs.
Yes.
And then it went bigger. I found out upon becoming a health coach and upon training in metabolic typing, all of a sudden it comes together. In our discipline, we call it the blocking factors. These are things that are in your body that are blocking the homeostatic system from expressing itself correctly. And the number one thing I found were industrial age toxins, heavy metals, volatile organic compounds, and other forever chemicals, whether they're Teflon and his cousins or, I don't know.
Oh, there's so many, aren't there?
Like, I'm pretty darn smart, but I do have these lags where the brain just doesn't deliver.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's common for probably people you have in your audience, the classic symptoms.
Yes.
Right? Skin problems, memory, recall problems, I don't know.
Yeah.
You name it.
So many things linked to it. It's just incredible. But yeah, the brain fog and the memory loss, and there's a part of my life where it was just a blur before I got diagnosed. I had a small baby, and there's so many things that happened in her short little, window that I don't have any memory of it. It's quite sad. So thank God for photos.
Yeah, at some point when you get quite toxic, the conversion of the short-term into long-term memory is just lacking.
Yeah,
lacking.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, definitely.
Indeed. So anyway, to further introduce what I've done, so I learned a lot about how to put it together. And so I wrote some ebooks and I share it with the world. And I have these 4 fingers where I say toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. These will be the legs upon which your illness will stand.
Yeah.
You must get rid of the toxic things because when they're present, they're affecting your microbiome, especially the microbiome.
Yeah.
And when that starts breaking, then of course everything else follows, right?
Yes.
The tight junctions start loosening up and the villi start suffering.
Yeah.
And who knows, right? Like you're going from villi this big to nothing.
And then I'm not absorbing the nutrients, and then that's just that flow-on effect, isn't it? All these other health problems happen, and
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that I had a relative with this problem.
Yes.
I watched it up close.
Yeah.
And we were discussing, can it be repaired, right? What stage am I? Is it marsh this or marsh that? How far am I in? Go have a biopsy and see how your villi are doing. Oh, you're about halfway down to nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we save it? Can we bring it back, right?
Yeah.
All those big questions.
Yeah.
And actually, well, I mean, watching now, it's a gal that's got this problem. Watching from distance, I can see that her life has become managed.
Yes.
Certainly not like it was before.
Yeah.
But living a life that's worth living.
Yes, exactly.
Total disaster, right?
That's so true, isn't it? It's not like it's the end of the world. It's just something different that we have to focus on and do things differently for our health and our lifestyle. And, reflecting on how I used to feel and how my clients and my students used to feel, you definitely wouldn't want to be keeping on eating the gluten. So, going gluten-free and then, looking at those ways that we can make ourselves feel better. And I know this is a big topic that you focus on, and that's supplementing our diet. And I remember many years ago learning about the importance of supplements in today's lifestyle because the food is just not what it used to be, is it? You'd have to agree with that.
You know what's interesting? There are these 2 philosophies. One is additive, as in what do you need to add?
Yep.
But the other one is subtractive.
Yes.
What do you need to take out? And it turns out that we need to take out the toxins.
Yes.
We need to actually get rid of the industrial problems. For me, zeolite worked exceedingly well.
What was that one? Sorry.
Zeolite.
Zeolite. Okay.
Zeolite.
Yep.
Or Zeolite for the Americans.
Yeah. So that helps remove the toxins from the body. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a binder. It's electronegative,
Okay.
both externally and internally, and it will pull in, much like a sponge,
Okay.
things like cadmium, lead, arsenic, mercury, but also all kinds of industrial things, volatile organic compounds. Anything that's electropositive will find its way in
Yeah.
and be taken out.
Yeah.
So that's a huge contribution.
Definitely.
And then I discovered humic acid and fulvic acid. Are you aware of those?
I love fulvic acid. I take fulvic acid and it is a game changer. It's probably one of my favorite supplements, to be honest.
Yeah, that was like, my 5 things, right?
Yeah.
Zeolite takes out the garbage. Fulvic is exceedingly good at being like a broom. The zeolite would be like the dustpan.
Yes.
Where the fulvic knocks it out of hiding and zeolite grabs it and takes it out. So as a team, they work exceedingly well.
I was just about to say, great combination to work together. Okay, that's fantastic. So would you say that most people need to be taking these types of supplements, like with all the exposure? Like when we look at our lifestyles today, it's pretty hard to avoid toxins, isn't it? It's in our food, it's in our water, it's in our mattresses, it's in our clothing, it's in the air that we breathe, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's hard to escape toxins.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I did an intense 1 year of taking a high dose, and then I backed it off, and I'm taking maintenance dose of it every day.
Okay.
Every time I get in the car, I'm driving on the highway, the brake pad dust from the metallic brake pads is in the air.
Yeah.
I'm inhaling that.
Yeah.
The tire dust is all around me. Somebody with their dry cleaned shirt just came by. I'm whiffing that in. And then on my walk, I'm smelling the dryer sheets that some unenlightened person is still spewing this beautiful fragrance into the world.
Yeah. It's
right?
just, it's everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, I can go through the examples, whatever, right? When your liver is not strong enough, you start being really strongly affected by the smells. One cigarette, you walk past it and
yeah, you're breathing it in.
We have to cross the street to go to the other side from 50 yards away when I see somebody standing there
to get away
smoking
from
a cigarette.
Yeah. It's almost unavoidable, really, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, there are things that we can do to help, and obviously what you're talking about with the supplements can absolutely support that. And there are steps that we can take in our own homes. I've done a whole episode on this previously where I've talked about, things that we can cut out and things that we can focus on. But yeah, it's supplementing definitely for the toxins.
Glyphosate or Roundup is used now in growing of grains.
Yes.
Especially wheat. Well, your audience will not eat that.
Yeah.
But it's also used on lentils and chickpeas and other produce.
Yeah.
So you need to be very vigilant at that, because glyphosate is an antibiotic. And when it gets inside you, it will start wiping out the microbes.
Yes.
Same story. Water. If it's chlorinated, why did we put the chlorine in it? To wipe out infectious organisms. Well, it still has the killing power in your body.
Yeah.
So no chlorinated water. Right? So I'm still leading up to, and then what? Well, you need to feed the microbes, that's known as prebiotics. These are the indigestible fibers, typically known as oligosaccharides, and there are 8 or 9 types, not just 2. And they should be present, because depending on what your body needs, you need to feed the right microbes to help to restore the terrain.
Yes.
Because what's ingested is not necessarily what's absorbed.
That's so true.
And you do know that, right?
Yeah.
And so the microbes that are within us are actually very important. In fact, here's a metaphor for you. If I were a tree, the villi would be my roots.
Yes.
Because the stuff that goes down the tube is my soil. Right?
Yeah.
And so if my root system is weak, that's a challenge.
Yes.
But the second thing is, the plants absorb nutrients thanks to the microbes that live at their roots.
Yeah.
That's how the herbicides like glyphosate kill plants.
Yeah.
They kill them by killing the microbes.
Yeah.
That's
That
an
makes sense.
important thing to remember.
It is, isn't it? So important. Yeah, definitely.
So now going through this process then, okay, industrial food grown on a depleted soil that's been fertilized by NPK, as in nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, caused the plant to grow beautifully fast without having the time to actually absorb much of anything from the soil.
Yeah.
And because the soil has been used over and over and over without being rock dusted, they don't replenish the fine or whatever, the trace minerals. They only replenish the 3 with the fertilizer.
Because back in the day, they used to rotate crops, didn't they? They'd do one crop over here, and then they'd let that soil regenerate, and then they'd move over to another spot, and then they'd do their crop there, and vice versa. But they're not doing that now. They don't have the space, they don't have the time, they want to make more money, so they're just reusing the same soil over and over, and that's where the food is getting the nutrients from. But when it's not there, we are eating depleted food, aren't we?
Right. So not only are we getting short of the macro minerals, we are especially short of the trace minerals.
Yeah.
I saw a study published in 1937. It's in the Congressional Record in the United States, where they're complaining of the status of foods, that the mineral levels are falling.
In 1937?
37.
Wow.
This is before the industrial scale fertilizers.
Yeah.
And then I saw a study just a few years ago that showed that food today is about 10% of the mineralization of food of 1937.
Wow.
Which means the following. If you eat 10 pounds of broccoli today, you have about what your grandmother got when she ate 1 pound.
So when they're saying, you know, eat this amount of vegetables, eat this amount of fruit, it's really not enough, is it? It's not enough for the average diet to get all the nutrients that we need for optimal health. So this is one of my big things, is optimal health. Not the bare minimum, not the minimum that we're told we need, the optimal amount that we need to thrive and heal and be feeling at our best. Yeah.
I'm also a CEO of a business called Exula Foods. That's spelled EXSULA. And we sell them on the Life Enthusiast website.
Yeah.
And we make them ourselves. And we go far and wide looking for ingredients that are grown in high nutrient density terrain.
Fantastic.
So that we're giving you a teaspoon of something that is going to be worth, I don't know what, but 10 times its weight of something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely about eating a balanced diet, isn't it? Focusing on that organic food where possible. I know it's not always achievable financially for a lot of people, but focusing on that, focusing on lowering our toxins, you know, growing our own food where possible. We've got a beautiful veggie patch in our garden where we grow as much as possible in a small space, and supplementing as well. So yeah, there's some great tips.
Yeah, I mean, I get to talk to these people. They call me, they're 65, 55, something age like that, and they're falling apart. They're in trouble.
Yeah.
Their joints are shot, their body shape is all whatever, you know.
Yeah. Are you seeing that from a big increase in processed foods as well as the, you know, the farmed fresh food that's covered in, you know, these chemicals? Is it a combination of both of those, do you believe?
Well, I would call it the conspiracy of the industry with the government, where, especially in America, I don't know how bad it's got in Australia, but in America, there is a huge amount of subsidy applied to 3 foods: corn, soy, and wheat.
Yeah.
They are heavily subsidized. Yeah. They're overproduced and they're overrepresented.
Yes.
And then you put people on food stamps, which essentially is a food subsidy.
Yep.
And then all they get to buy are foods that are made from those subsidized ingredients. So they're disproportionately cheaper than they should be.
Yeah. And those ingredients are just in so many packaged foods, aren't they? It's just getting ridiculous.
Yeah. To make it really, really dramatic, I would say it this way. So you eat a meal of this food-like substance, and you have ingested a bunch of calories, but not much nutrition.
Yeah.
And then the body says, I want nutrition, feed me. So you go back for more, you do the same. So you're just loading calories.
Yeah.
Well, the consequence of having excess calories is first the glucose, then the glycogen, then the
excess weight as well.
Well, cholesterol and the inflammatory markers and all of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if it cannot be consumed, then it goes into fat.
Yeah.
So we have this crisis of diabetes, obesity.
Yeah. It's just ongoing, really, isn't it? There's so many. Oh, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, focusing.
So I don't know if these people that are suffering in that kind of trap are able to get out of it.
Yeah. Well, it becomes an addiction, doesn't it? Especially when there's sugar involved and, you know, it's cheap and it's accessible.
Speaking of sugar, right? One of the worst inventions is HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. It's It's high fructose, which means it loads your liver,
Yeah.
but it's also high glycemic index.
Yes.
87,
Spikes the
which
sugar.
is greater. It's higher than sucrose.
Yeah, wow.
It's actually driving your glycemic index worse than straight sugar.
Yeah, it's crazy. We don't see much of that in our products here in Australia, but I know in America it's just way overused, like ridiculous.
It's in ketchup, and it's in mustard, and it's in cookies, and
Yeah, wow.
So to answer your question, so then what, right? Nutrient density, absolutely required.
Yep.
So I mentioned my 3 favorite things. So that was the binders, the food for the microbes.
Yep.
The humic fulvic, that's still the terrain, building the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally nutrient density, chlorella, spirulina, other high density foods like sprouted anything, right?
Yeah.
Because seed to this day load up at the expense of everything else in the plant.
Mm-hmm.
They load up the nutrients. I mean, the seed is like the egg.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
So it's the package that will allow the first, 4 to 6 inches of the plant to grow without any external inputs other than light and water.
Mm-hmm.
So think of that. So when you're eating that sprout, that's probably as nutritious as anything can be.
Yeah. Great addition to have in the diet.
So anyway, that's how we make those nutrient-dense foods.
Okay, good to know. All right, so we've covered off those top things that we need to be focusing on. What are some other areas that you believe that we need to look at as well within the body, Martin?
Yeah, well, I spoke about the first 2 legs, right? The toxicity, as in stuff that's in you that should not be there,
Yep.
and malnutrition. You need to get things that you should have. It's
Yes.
important that they come in. The third one is, I call it stagnation, which essentially is this. Your body, interstitial fluids, all of the fluids other than your blood, do not have a pump of its own. It needs to move. And if you don't move it up and down against gravity, it becomes stagnant. And it's really quite problematic.
Okay.
We need to have flow. We need to have all the detox pathways flowing, which that means that your digestive and eliminative needs to be working well, but also you need to be able to sweat freely, and
Yes.
all of that needs to come out. People see huge successes by adding heat treatments, sauna. To
Massive fan of sauna. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And especially if they are brave enough to alternate it with ice dips.
Yes.
Like overheat and overcool, or
Yeah.
undercool, back and forth.
So great
That's
for the body.
Magic.
Yes, I believe in that as well. Big fan. Yes. And I guess exercise is another part of that factor as well. Yes, that ties in.
We recommend rebounders,
Yep.
trampolines, because for people who don't have the time or the climate to get out there and walk 2 hours,
Yep.
doing half an hour indoors is quite manageable.
Yeah, yep. So for those listening that don't know what rebounding is, it can be a small little round trampoline and you just jump on that, and that can really help with getting everything moving. And I know a lot of celebrities big fans of rebounding. So yeah, and like you say, perfect for if you can't get outdoors, due to climate. So that's a good one. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, that would be that. Of course, understanding exercise, right? Most of us in this physiology do well on interval training, meaning high load, short period of time, and then rest out.
Yes.
Do not try to do hours of aerobic.
Yeah.
The bicycle racing is not really made for people with our genetics.
No, you're right. Yeah. I think we're moving away from that. I know back in the 80s and the 90s, it was huge to just cardio, and like being thin was so in, whereas now it's more about being healthy and having healthy muscle and bone strength. And I do see a massive shift away from that, which is fantastic.
Right. And so that would be time under load.
Yep.
Right? Like you want to take as big a weight as you can manage
Yep.
and do a short amount of reps to reach your end point.
Yes.
Right? Like, I don't know what that is, pick up 10 kilo bells and just
keep going. Yeah.
You should be able to do 10, and the 11th is beyond.
Yes.
You cannot do it.
Yeah.
And then rest.
Yeah.
Breathe it out and do something else.
Yeah.
But it only takes 15 minutes a day to
exactly. Yeah. It doesn't take long at all. Yeah.
So those would be my anti-stagnation suggestions.
Fantastic.
Move, bounce.
Yep.
Walk, and put yourself under stress.
Yep. Wonderful. Yep. And then the next topic we were talking about earlier was trauma. So we wanted to touch on that as well.
I mean, in my head, that's the invisible stuff.
Yes.
So the number one trauma now is EMF, electromagnetic frequencies.
Yeah.
A great many people do not do well under the load of the electromagnetic soup. Mm-hmm. So if you're one of those, there are gadgets that help limit it.
Yes.
Or turn it off, move away.
Yeah.
Hit the country.
Yeah.
Turn it off.
Go live on an island.
Turn it off at night. But
yes.
I don't know. I mean, you cannot turn off your neighbors. So
yeah, that's right.
It's just getting bad.
Yeah.
It's just getting difficult.
So
the science of it is this. It's called voltage-gated calcium channel. Mm-hmm. The electromagnetic frequency will push on the cell in such way that it gets triggered into flooding itself with calcium. And calcium is the signaling molecule for fight or flight, the sympathetic side of the autonomic, which puts you in stress, cannot sleep, cannot repair, cannot relax. And the mindset is worry or anger. So all of that is classic for a person who's not repairing enough.
Yeah.
And so the antidote to that, by the way, other than having a gadget that helps you cope with that, is dipping in magnesium, because magnesium is the element that is activating the other side, the parasympathetic. It's the antidote to calcification.
Right.
So soak in magnesium as much as you can.
Okay, so like put the magnesium in a bath or something like that is what you're saying, rather than taking it orally. Yep. Okay.
Orally not enough.
Not enough. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can try, but by the time your clinical dose magnesium, you're having diarrhea.
Right.
Because magnesium will speed up the peristalsis, so you're just flushing.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need to take it topically through the skin.
Okay.
Fantastic. And the food that's most parasympathizing is chlorophyll. So chlorella, wheatgrass, well, maybe not wheatgrass, barley grass. All the alfalfa. Okay. All the really green things. Those are the foods that will help to take you out of the overstressed traumatic state.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other trauma, of course, is the emotional business that we come with.
Yeah.
That's, I send people out to others. My favorite things would be EFT, as in emotional freedom technique. Or body talk, or quantum healing, or emotion code. There are a number of these disciplines, all of which are able to focus on your body without having to necessarily process the trauma itself. Just release it. You don't need to know why or who or when. You just let it go.
Yeah. And we see it time and time again, how people just hold on to this trauma and it becomes their story, and it can create so many problems. And I've had experiences in my time that I've had to get rid of and deal with. And I've personally found that talking about it is the worst thing for me. I've found that talking just brings it all up again, whereas I have tried some of those techniques that you spoke about and they have been more helpful. I love the tapping has been amazing. So we might put some links below for people about it.
Yeah, it's teachable, learnable. I mean, not everybody has the linguistic skill to create the map that's required to get to the bottom of it, right? Like, you want to find the root cause of it.
Yes.
So, the reason for my unhappiness is that I hate my husband. Well, no, I only hate when he chews tobacco. Actually, no, that reminds me of my father.
Yeah.
And so, like, you need to peel the thing back.
Yeah. Layers. Yeah.
Anyway, so for that, if you have a skilled operator who goes through that with you, you save yourself a ton of time.
Yeah.
And years.
Yes.
Because when you get free today.
That's
as opposed to work on it for years. Like the worst thing, you are right, the worst thing is the talk therapy.
Yes.
Because all you're doing is you're replaying the trauma and recording it back in.
Yep.
And if it's internally directed, then it leads to anxiety, self-recrimination, if you're reliving your past, or future projection where you're imagining the worst that could possibly happen without it ever needing to happen.
Yeah.
Just living in fear of something.
Yeah.
And if it's externally expressed, then it's just rage.
Yeah.
It's just screaming at people.
Okay.
So that's over acidity.
Yeah.
Right. So we have people who mismanage their inputs. And if you mismanage your inputs into alkalinity, you're going to end up depressed. If you mismanage it into acidity, you end up being angry or worried. If you mismanage it intraday, you're going to be swinging back and forth.
Right.
You can wake up angry and you can end up depressed, depending what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And so these are simple tools, and you're told that you need drugs to manage it, but it could be that's your food that you can change. And it's often as simple as half of a potato, or a dollop of coconut oil. It doesn't have to be a huge amount.
Yeah.
That will shift the balance.
Yeah. Incredible.
So that's the metabolic balancing.
Yeah.
That can make a huge difference in a person's life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll pop a link below the show notes so that people can go and check out more about that, because it is fascinating. And, what I do in my business as well is all about focusing on food and what we eat and how that, affects us. So yours is going a lot deeper into that and really specific on the person, which is amazing. I love it.
Yeah. To focus on what you do, right? I love where you are with you help people who are damaged and needing to have a lot of help to get back together, right?
Yeah.
I usually end up talking to people who are just overweight or have arthritis or feel depressed. Yeah. Right? We still can help those.
Yes. All right, so we talked about some really great topics today, and I think that the listeners can walk away from this and focus on, reducing their toxins, adding in some amazing supplements, which we'll link to in the show notes as well, and maybe look at metabolic typing as well with you, Martin, if that's something that they want more info on. So where can we find you? Where's the best place to go, check out your info and learn more from what you have to offer?
Yes, you can find me at a business called Life Enthusiast, and the website is life-enthusiast.com. Well, we'll just post it in the notes.
Yeah, I'll pop it in the notes for sure. And you've got a podcast as well. What's the name of your show?
Oh, it's the Life Enthusiast podcast.
Easy.
I have the episodes posted right on the website, and of course you can find it in all the common places, the Apple and I don't know. What are they called?
Oh, there's so many now. On your favorite podcast app. Perfect. Yeah. All right. I'll pop all those links below so that you can check them out. So please go learn a bit more from Martin and find out everything that you want to know about what he teaches. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Martin, and sharing your expertise with us. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Great. All right, have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week on the show. Bye.